Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anita Utheim-Iversen. I'm head of the Global Action Network, Sustainable Food from the Oceans and Inland Waters for Food Security and Nutrition, initiated by Norway in 2017 under the United Nations Decade of Action on Nutrition. On behalf of the Global Action Network, I wish you all warm welcome. The network echoes the recommendations on sustainable fisheries and aquaculture for food security and nutrition from the Committee on World Food Security, the CFS. CFS recommend us to address the challenges to enhance the contribution of sustainable fisheries and aquaculture to food security and nutrition. Today, we will address how to fully address the gender dimension. We are so glad so many of you will follow this session here in the room and also in cyberspace. And we have a very interesting lineup. And I'm very excited to learn from their experiences. We are very lucky to have Dr. Shakuntala Tilsted, Global Lead Nutrition and Public Health at WorldFish and World Food Prize winner 2021 as a moderator. She's an important contributor to the Global Action Network and will guide us through this event. I hope you all will enjoy this session, and I hand it over to you, Shakuntala. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Anita Utheim-Iversen is the lead of the Global Action Network on sustainable food from the oceans and inland waters for food security and nutrition, and also from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, Norway. Dear fellow participants, both here in Rome and those who are tuning in online, welcome to this morning's side event of the 50th session of the Committee on World Food Security. Please note that this event is being recorded. This side event, hosted by the Global Action Network, will showcase solutions for empowering and engaging women in sustainable aquatic food systems. We will feature stories from a number of women along the aquatic food supply chains, from healthy waters to healthy people, bringing more attention to the importance of aquatic food systems for food and nutrition security and for nourishing people and our planet. Let us first launch 2 online polls to engage our virtual audience. And the first question that would appear is, in which regions are you tuning in from? The poll is on. I hope I see some from the Caribbean, where I come from. Here we are. I see no one from the Caribbean yet, but there's Europe, as you can see, and then Asia and Africa. And let's go on to, and quite, some also from North America. Let's go on to our second poll. Which group or community do you belong to? So our top group, NGO, academia, and governments. Thank you to our virtual audience, and let us continue our engagement and participation throughout this whole event. To kickstart our high-level opening remarks, we are honored to be addressed by Her Excellency Mavis Kumson, Minister, Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Ghana, and the Member of Parliament, Iwutu Sena East Constituency, Central Region, through a video message. There seems to be something wrong with the sound. Let's see.
At the side event, it is an honor to deliver the for empowering mental engagement in aquatic. It is an honor to deliver the opening remarks at the side event chain on solutions during the committee on world food security in aquatic food systems being held at the FAO headquarters, the supply chain. During the Committee on World Food Security of Trade, industry being held at the FAO and the Global Action Network for the invitation, the Royal Norwegian Ministry of Trade events, industry on behalf of the government of Ghana and the Global Action Network. I wish to express our gratitude for the invitation and appreciation to participate in this the government of Norway event for the support over the years. On behalf of the government of Ghana, I wish to express our gratitude and appreciation to the government of Norway. The ministry support over the recognize years, the technical development of the fisheries and the aquaculture sector, Norway in funded projects such as the ministry recognize the technical assistance received and empowering women Norway in funded fisheries such as the fish for development projects in Ghana. And the empowering fishing industry is a highly gender fisheries segregated sector food systems where men are involved in the production. In Ghana, the fishing industry is a highly gender traditionally occupied segregated sector where men are involved in the production. Extractive sector and women have traditionally occupied work.
I'm sorry about that. It seems that we are starting. Are we going to start over or?
The pre-estimated harvest sectors. Women participation in the role of women is significant.
I think we stop the video here and we make sure that when we put the recording on our website that we will have the minister's speech on the website as well. I'm sorry about this.
Apart from the traditionally assigned role of processing and
for being with us. And now I'd like to move on and invite Björg Sandkjær, State Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Norway, to deliver her high-level remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I would like to also thank the Honorable Minister from Ghana for being with us this morning, as well as everyone here in the room and people who've joined us online for this event where we talk about a very important issue, an issue that is close to my heart. And it's very inspiring to see the impressive list of speakers, because what we are talking about today is realizing the right to food, realizing the right to feed ourselves. And to do that, aquatic foods are key. We know that aquatic foods are vital in the fight against poverty and hunger. as source of high quality proteins and essential micronutrients, this food group has a key role to help end hunger. Aquatic foods, therefore, should not be left out of the food security discussion. And we all know this is particularly important in low-income countries. And this discussion also has a gender component. We also know that women, in all our diversity, have a vital role to play in fisheries. Globally, 90% of fishers are engaged in small-scale fisheries, accounting for approximately 50% of the total catch. 4 out of 10 people in small-scale fisheries are women. And so to take this agenda forward, we need to acknowledge the gender dimension and the important role played by women. Also, women play an important role in ensuring that our families and wider community have access to nutritious foods, income, and livelihoods. During this side event, the voices of women from across the food value chain will be heard. I am sure that we will hear important messages about challenges, as well as get input on how we can contribute to better aquatic food systems. In this year of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture, Norway has particularly been highlighting the role of women in the aquatic food system. We support gender equality and women's empowerment in aquatic food systems in our development assistance. I was able to hear the Honorable Minister from Ghana mention the good collaboration between our two countries in the Fish for Development program, which is one example of collaboration on this important question. As Norway, we stress the importance of awareness and knowledge about women's roles, ensuring that they are not marginalized in development projects. Norway also emphasizes the importance of strengthening the contributions of women when we promote the voluntary guidelines for small-scale fisheries and supporting FAO financially in the implementation of these guidelines. Improved governance of small-scale fisheries will contribute to the eradication of hunger and poverty. But to improve governance, we need to address again the gender dimension in the entire aquatic food system. Women engage at all levels, be it in subsistence activities, in commercial fishing, or in fish processing and marketing. To put it quite simply, we cannot advance on any agenda without women. Gender equality is both good business and good for business. And we also need both women and men to reach our goals. And that's why Norway has made gender equality a priority, both at home and abroad. And while this certainly is true, we do realize that there is a way to go. So I look forward to listening and learning from women present here today. Your voices and perspectives are incredibly important for our common progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam State Secretary. And thanks to the Minister of Ghana and the State Secretary from Norway for setting the stage for today's events. In this event, we will have 2 panel discussions. Let us start with the first panel on showcasing solutions to empower women and engage women in sustainable aquatic food systems. It is estimated that 1 in 2 aquatic food systems actors is a woman. However, this may be an underestimation of the contribution of women, as many women are engaged informally. Many are invisible and not accounted for in the data. Furthermore, women face more challenges and barriers limiting their participation in aquatic food supply chains, especially in leadership and management roles. For this first panel, I am very pleased that we have 3 women representing engagement in various parts of the aquatic food supply chain. They will present to us proven solutions. Each of them will make a short presentation before we open the floor for questions and answers. Our virtual audience can submit questions in the Q&A box and comments in the chat box in Zoom. And we will address some of these now and some later on our webpage. Firstly, let me invite Micheline Dion, Women's Program Manager, African Confederation of Professional Organizations of Artisanal Fisheries, COPA, to deliver her presentation. Micheline? Thank you, Micheline. I know you had some problems trying to get through the FAO security service, but thank you for being here. Micheline will respond briefly to the questions. What values do women bring to the production aspects of the aquatic food system? What challenges do women face that must be overcome in order to fully realize these values? Micheline, please, the floor is yours. And please note, if you need to take on your earphones, because Micheline will be speaking in French. When you enter English, you can speak in French.
Ok, that's Chaputala, c'est où ça? Oui, oui, pour le diapo. Je préfère ça. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un pour le diapo? Est-ce que Ok, je suis Dion Sompley Micheline, coordonnatrice des programmes femmes de la CAOPA. Et je voulais me présenter aujourd'hui quelques exemples concrets au niveau des pays africains, en l'occurrence celui de la Côte d'Ivoire. Prochaine diapo. La chaîne de valeur est composée de plusieurs activités qui emploient des milliers de personnes, dont les femmes et les jeunes. Il y a ici les pêcheurs, les transformatrices, les mareyeuses, les micro-mareyeuses, les chargeurs, ceux qui font les débarquements, les découpeurs, les femmes qui collectent les déchets pour la transformation de la farine et celles qui font le fumage de poissons précisément dit. Prochaine diapo. Il y a aussi les commerçantes. L'amélioration des conditions de travail par l'innovation, c'est aussi le fumage ancien dans lequel les femmes étaient vraiment éprouvées, très difficiles, exposées à la chaleur, exposées au vent, des problèmes de santé, des problèmes d'yeux, des maux de tête, de l'anémie, plusieurs maladies que développaient ces femmes. Ben, aujourd'hui, avec les fours FTT que la FAO a donné aux femmes, il y a de l'amélioration dans ces conditions. C'est une nouvelle technologie qui permet non seulement de donner une meilleure qualité de poisson dans de bonnes conditions d'hygiène, pour améliorer aussi les revenus des femmes et la réduction des pertes, parce que c'est des fours qui prennent de grandes quantités. Prochaine diapo. Et ça, nous l'apprécions vraiment. En plus de cela, nous avions créé au niveau de l'innovation, la pisciculture, c'est pratiquement l'aquaculture à petite échelle qui est intégrée dans le maraîchage hors sol. Aujourd'hui, que nous ayons accès à de l'eau ou pas, il y a des techniques aujourd'hui qui nous permettent de pouvoir faire la pisciculture intégrée au maraîchage hors sol, qui est aussi des activités qui sont des exemples concrets aujourd'hui au niveau de la Côte d'Ivoire, que nous sommes en train de partager avec les autres pays pour pouvoir limiter le gaspillage, pour pouvoir être en plein temps dans les activités de pêche. Prochaine. En conclusion, nous pouvons dire que les femmes jouent un rôle essentiel dans toute la filière de la pêche artisanale. Elles sont porteuses d'innovation pour une pêche économiquement, socialement et environnementalement durable. Il faut des fours FTT par coopérative ou par organisation féminine pour limiter les pertes après capture et maximiser les revenus. Il faut des équipements aquacoles à petite échelle et des refroidissements solaires pour un meilleur accès à la ressource. Il faut un fonds de roulement pour permettre aux coopératives de fonctionner correctement parce que la ressource, nous la payons au comptant. Nous pouvons dire qu'il est essentiel de valoriser leur action pour une pêche et une aquaculture artisanale inclusive en Afrique. Je vous remercie pour votre aimable attention.
Thank you, Micheline, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Our next two panelists are virtual. So let's hope this works. This is the first time I'm doing a mixed moderation. Now let me invite Rhoda Mkumbwa, Secretary General, Malawi, Chapter, African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network, our FishNet, to address us. Rhoda,
Thank you.
how can
Thank you.
women's groups work together to promote gender equality and women's empowerment in aquatic food systems? Rhoda?
Thank you. As mentioned, my name is Rhoda Bianca Mkumbwa. I'm the Secretary General of the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network, our FishNet, Malawi chapter. Our FishNet is a platform for African women fish farmers, processors, and traders. And its key function is to enhance connections among women to enable them communicate and collaborate to share experiences, best practices, and also to strengthen and promote gender equality, women empowerment in the fisheries sector. There's a great need to support women in fisheries sector. Why and how? Women and fish are inseparable. There's a strong link between women, food security, and food nutrition. Fish is the most affordable source of animal protein in Africa. It is a capital-friendly business for women because as little as $5, a woman can start a small-scale fish business. Women in fish business face many challenges. Just to mention a few, cultural issues. For example, women cannot go fishing. As a result, women focus on post-harvest processing and trade. The second is lack of physical space to do business. As a result, they mostly sell in less attractive low-income markets. Social factors, family obligations, for example. As a result, women operate in limited distance market areas. The other one is weak capital base. As a result, women mostly operate small-scale fish businesses, which in turn has limited growth. For example, most women fail to buy large volumes of fish and transport them to distant markets. They also have weekly organized women groups due to their busy schedules, as women have limited time because they have to juggle between household chores, community activities, and business trips. They also have limited skills. Small-scale women fish processors have limited skill in fish processing. As a result, they have high post-harvest losses and low productive differentiation. Women fish entrepreneurs need support to advance, including the following: technical skills, in fish processing and product differentiation, training in entrepreneurship, marketing, savings and credit, training in gender and group dynamics to strengthen their business, organizations, and solidarity. OfficialNet Malawi is working with government and other partners to promote gender equality and women empowerment through promoting women cooperatives at grassroots and national levels through sensitization, mobilization, and training, supporting legal recognition of women's cooperatives through registration and accreditation. For example, Malawi Confederation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry for export permits, supporting the provision of capital equipment for women cooperatives, for example, cold storage at fish landing sites and transport, modern solar processing equipments, capacity building on advocacy skills for women cooperatives so that they can effectively engage in policymaking processes, supporting the provision of facilities at marketplaces, for example, sanitary and baby-friendly facilities or daycares to help mothers with babies, improving access to finance for women cooperatives, for example, matching grants and credit de-risking facilities to finance their business operations. My recommendations are that there's need to train women on entrepreneurship, financial management, marketing skills, and modern ways of fish processing, improve their innovation skills to help them excel in fish processing and trade activities for their financial gains. Women in fisheries should be actively involved in policy formulation. They should be heard, understood, and prioritized in the implementation of policies. For example, OfficialNet mobilizes women to speak with one voice on issues that directly affects women in fisheries business. Only when women are included, we can build resilient fisheries. There is need to support on exchange programs to share experiences and good practices in fish processing and trade. There's great need to empower women economically. No economic empowerment for women, no gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda, and please stay on for some questions.
All right,
Now,
thank you.
I am very pleased to invite to this panel Nabamika Sonowal, technical expert, fisheries, Assam Agribusiness and Rural Transformation Project, APAT, India. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure to be together with Nabamika and her colleagues in Assam, experiencing the amazing work they are doing together with communities. Nabamika is joining us virtually, and I have requested her to talk on how can women and women's groups raise awareness on the importance of consumption of safe and healthy foods. And in Assam, they are focusing on the first 1,000 days of life. And also, how can they assure, that is women and women's groups, that aquatic food products reach the poor and vulnerable? Over to you, Nabamika.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this opportunity. Hello, everyone. Now I'm going to this presentation explain about what we are doing in aquatic food production system and their supply chain by engaging women in Assam under a part project, technical support by WorldFish and funded by World Bank. Next slide, please. Under the APART project, we have conducted a series of awareness and demonstration programs on role and benefit of small fish consumption, and we are also trained to prepare a small fish powder in household level for giving knowledge to the farmers and mothers and caregivers. So this program, major participants were pregnant women, women, lactating mothers, adults and girls, children, caregiver, community leaders, farmers, and we also included ICDS staffs and our apart field staff, and we also included our fishery department official. So on the awareness come demonstration program, we have conducted 45 numbers of awareness program in different districts of Assam, in different community level like Bodo community, Rava community, and Sunwal Koshari and Kalbi community, and different community like. So now based on the success of the program, Kamrup District Administration of Assam came forward to pilot nutritious small fish pond intro 293 Anganwadi center, include 7,000 children aged between 3 to 6 years. Next slide, please. In this program, main objective is to establish a program to build awareness creation among the Anganwadi workers and staffs. So our second objective is how to include a small fish powder for nutritional benefits of its children and women. So next, we are third objective also, we're also expecting to understand the acceptability of the small fish powder among the children of Anganwadi center, and we also expecting to under this project to influence the mothers, caregivers, and other community members to practice proper feeding and adapt balanced diversity diet, including the small fish. So here method is that the small fish produced by farmers in Assam under APART project will be converted into small fish powder. So WorldFish team gave a training to the FPC level with the support of College of Fishery to assure the quality of the product. Then the small fish powder will be supplied to the Director of Social Welfare Department for the use of Anganwadi workers and incorporated into khichdi like hot cooked meal for children during the feeding program. Next slide, please. Here, mostly women and young women involved in the production of the hygienically certified diet small fish powder through farmer producer company and supply to the Anganwadi center. In Assam, most of the women like ICDS, Anganwadi workers, and their field staffs like this one play important role to giving the message of the community level. So on the base of the awareness, training, and demonstration program, we are conducted by APART project and technical support by WorldFish. So on this basis, we have certain recommendation. And we have a lot of resources in Assam. The availability of small fish also high in Assam. So more awareness and demonstration activities should be organized in different parts of Assam in different communities. So as a part of the ICDS SNP program, the inclusion of small fish powders should be scaled up in the different districts of Assam in different communities. So we have another recommendation that hygienically dried small fish may be another option to supply the take-home ration for consumption and women and lactating mothers. So next. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nabamika. This concludes our 3 presentations from the first panelists. Now we will take some questions and answers. While we wait for some questions to come on, and I can see them here, I would like to direct a question to Rhoda. Rhoda, and this question came from our discussions that we were having last week as we were setting the program together. In your presentation, you have outlined some recommendations for change. However, many of these recommendations are still challenged by various barriers. May I ask you to give one priority action that can be taken immediately in order to get women involved in entrepreneurial activities in fisheries? Rhoda, over to you.
Thank you. There's a great need to improve access to finance by providing matching grants to women in fisheries. This will help women grow in their businesses. But not only that, we also need to push for gender equality. The only way we can push gender equality is by providing women or by empowering women through, I'm talking of economic empowerment. Only when women are empowered economically, that's when we can achieve gender equality. So this gender equality in women can be achieved by improving their access to finances through providing matching grants to women in fisheries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to engage with our audience here. So may I see a show of hand for a question for Nabamika from Assam? Please go ahead. And we have to make sure that Nabamika hears you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the panelists. I think that the situation is different from one country to another. For example, like in Sudan, there is no one prevent women to be engaged in the aquatic food. But sometimes the women, they do not want to be a part of this because of the traditions of the cultures. So I think it's a recommendation we have to put it as a recommendation that how we can, by awareness raising, by some sessions, how we can make them satisfied to be part of this process. The other thing is I very much like what the Indian lady said about the program. We have to work with the whole value chain, not only in production of fish. So we need to work on production, on processing, even if we have very small units of factories to process the fish, so as to keep it a long time for consumption, better consumption, and the marketing as well. Also, there is a need, because till now, especially in Africa, fishing is a very traditional way by very traditional equipment. So we have to modernize this equipment to get more benefit from fishing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Nabamika, perhaps I can take part of the comments and questions we had from the audience here and ask you, how did you motivate women, and what did you do to encourage them to be part of the process, because they were also included in the production of the product, but also allowing the Angawati centers to include the fish products in their meals? You would have to motivate the mothers, and you would have to get the permission from the mothers to do so. How did you get this motivation from the mothers of the children? Over to you.
First, we are doing awareness program at very low level and ground level, like a village area. We are going to the village, then we are going to awareness. We are giving how to prepare a small piece, how to clean a small piece, and how to prepare dry fish powder. We are giving training, and we are going to the basic levels. And we are in Assam, we know everyone, 95% of people are eating small fish, and we are easy to culture and easy to consumption. For point of view, just we need to awareness for it.
Thank you so
you.
much. Now, Micheline, to you. I have a program from the virtual group. And the program, and a question to you from the virtual group. And the question to you is, when you think about the future and you tell us of the very many hundreds of thousands of women who are engaged in fisheries, what do you see the future looks like for these women and for young women in the short and long term? It's quite a big question, and I hope you can give us some pointers.
D'accord, donc merci à la modératrice. Je pense que d'abord, il faut d'abord associer les femmes à tous les niveaux aux discussions, surtout dans la gestion des pêcheries. Et ensuite, ce que nous demandons aujourd'hui au niveau de la FAO, c'est au niveau des participants, au niveau de tous ceux qui sont là, c'est de renforcer les capacités des femmes, étant donné que dans nos pays déjà, les femmes sont impliquées dans toutes les étapes de la chaîne des valeurs, parce que c'est elles qui renforcent ou bien alors qui mettent à disposition les campagnes de pêche, qui soutiennent les pêcheurs dans les campagnes de pêche, de sorte à ce que la ressource puisse leur revenir. Et donc, pour l'avenir, il faut d'abord associer les femmes. Il faut permettre que les questions du genre soient réglées au niveau de la base, leur permettre d'être financièrement solides pour qu'elles puissent tenir le coup face à ce qui est en train d'arriver. Aujourd'hui, il y a un manque crucial de ressources. Donc, la contribution des femmes est énorme. C'est pour cela qu'il faut prendre à la base le fait de lutter d'abord contre les pertes après capture, permettre aux femmes d'être formées sur les nouvelles technologies qui arrivent et leur permettre de diversifier leurs activités. C'est en cela que les politiques qui ont été mises en place pourront être appliquées, permettre à la ressource de se régénérer et permettre à la ressource aussi d'être disponible à tous les niveaux. C'est pourquoi l'aquaculture à petite échelle viendra ici pour permettre, par exemple, le repos biologique pour ceux qui font la recherche. Aujourd'hui, on voit que les stocks sont en grande diminution et leur permettre de pratiquer cette aquaculture à petite échelle et l'associer à d'autres activités pourra permettre à la ressource de respirer, de se régénérer et permettre aux femmes d'avoir accès à la ressource à tout moment. Le programme ici, il est vaste puisque l'alimentation aujourd'hui, quand on doit parler de bonne santé, il faut qu'il y ait une alimentation assez variée et riche en protéines, surtout avec le poisson ou avec les ressources halieutiques. Donc, les questions que nous sommes en train de traiter ici sont très importantes. Il faut qu'elles soient impliquées à toutes les étapes de réflexion, que ce soit au niveau de la gestion des stocks, que ce soit au niveau du renforcement des capacités, du travail des femmes, que ce soit au niveau de l'alimentation en tant que nutriment important. Il est question de prendre tout au sérieux et de permettre aux femmes d'être très fortes et d'être dynamiques. Je vous remercie. Je pense que c'est à cela qu'il faut s'en tenir.
Thank you, Micheline. And thank you for such a rich response. There's a lot for us to think about and a lot for us to move on immediately. Let us now proceed to our second panel discussion on scaling up solutions to empower women and engage young women in sustainable aquatic food systems. We have three speakers with us. I am pleased to welcome Molly Ahern, Food and Nutrition Specialist, FAO, Maria Honey, Lead for WWF, Accelerated Coastal Community-Led Conservation Initiative, and Kifilwi Roba Mualosi, who is joining us virtually. She is the Senior Nutrition and Food Systems Officer of the African Union Development Agency, AUDA NEPAD, and Kifilwi is joining us from Nigeria. Each panelist will introduce their solution and describe the pathways to scale these solutions to more women at different scales. Thereafter, we will have an interactive discussion with our panelists. Molly, you first. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I think to add to the first panel, in order to empower women and engage especially youth and young women and ensure that they're recognized for their role in aquatic food systems, it's necessary to better understand where they work in aquatic food systems, not only in geographically in the areas that they work, but also in different nodes of the supply chain. And beyond this, we need to understand what are their needs in order to better target support. Drawing upon the UN Nutrition discussion paper that was published last year on the role of aquatic foods in sustainable healthy diets, one of the main recommendations was that policies, investment, and research should aim to co-create meaningful knowledge and innovations through improved data throughout aquatic food supply chains, not only focusing on fish production. As women's roles in aquatic food supply chains often fall in the post-production or post-harvest sector, they are often unrecognized or under-recognized, particularly in small-scale fisheries, due to informal or irregular labor or lack of gender disaggregated data. Thus, they may not receive the needed support to conduct their activities. In addition to the UN Nutrition discussion paper, the UN Nutrition discussion paper recommended improved efforts for understanding consumer needs and demands and promoting consumption of low trophic aquatic foods, such as small fish, as our colleague from India had mentioned, through food-based dietary guidelines, public procurement programs, and by developing innovative aquatic food products that are desirable and affordable for consumers. I'd like to add to that recommendation to highlight that we not only need to understand consumer needs and demands, but also the needs of the producer or the processor, trader, etc., the needs of the women working in these supply chains in order to meet this demand. In this respect, we must think beyond the supply chain as well, to consider drivers within the entire food system, for example, discriminatory barriers or limiting societal gender norms and expectations, which affect the engagement of women in aquatic food systems. In this vein, I'd like to highlight this week that we're all here for CFS, and the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment are promoting gender transformative approaches, which aim to tackle symptoms and structural causes of gender inequality, which can contribute to improved engagement and empowerment of women in aquatic food systems.
Thank you so much, Molly. Maria, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shakuntala, Minister, for having WWF with everyone to talk about such an important topic at CFS 50 and really very powerful all-woman panel, which is really very important for this topic as well. So I really appreciate being up here with everyone. I just want to place a little bit of importance on the ecosystems that are supporting aquatic foods, and of course, the livelihoods, the food security, and the importance of women in the industry as well, and show that degrading ecosystems, illegal fishing, anything that's eroding the marine resources in those systems are also a massive threat to food security of people around the world. And we know that over half of people in the sector are women and women fish workers. They operate in fisheries and aquatic value chains the world over. They inhabit millions of square kilometers of coastline and therefore rely on critical habitat that support those marine biodiversity globally. And the power they have to bend the curve on biodiversity loss is enormous. And therefore, women in coastal communities can be effective stewards of those environments, and where they choose, they need to be empowered to deliver effective and locally led solutions. We talked a bit about those solutions presented by Micheline, Keopa, and InFish, and from India, Those solutions are piloted, they're delivering successes on the ground, so we know what to do. We know how to address this issue. It's about scaling on those solutions, upwards, outwards, and deeply, and I'll talk a bit about how to do that. So WWF, together with 700 local and international partners, is scaling on these gender inclusive and gender transformative solutions the world over, taking a three-pronged scaling approach. We're scaling up by strengthening the participation of women in fish worker organizations and decision-making processes. CAOPA, our FishNet, these are the kinds of structures that need our support. They are the structures that need resourcing and strengthening in terms of membership. And they need to be put on appropriate platforms, strengthened by partners to deliver their advocacy in the appropriate policy arenas. And here I'm going to notably recognize GAN, that is a network that can strengthen policy outcomes for women, but also the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition, which is a brand new emerging coalition that has an important role to strengthen outcomes for coastal communities globally with respect to aquatic food and inserting aquatic foods in the food system. We need to ensure that there is appropriate empowerment of coastal communities, including women who are extremely marginalized in those value chains. And we need to ensure gender screening and policies are, appropriate gender policies are adopted at scale. So that's scaling up, scaling out, replication. This is a very comfortable space for all of us. We all know how to copy where something is going well. We want to take that exact model and implement it in a new site where we feel it's comfortably suited. This really relies heavily on something called scaling deep. Scaling deep is identifying the learning sites, the forums, those appropriate places, centers of excellence where learning is taking place, where knowledge sharing is taking place, to be able to empower women around the world to be able to take those locally led solutions to scale upwards and outwards. And here I place an important role on FAO in strengthening the learning and knowledge sharing processes of women around the world. So this is a scaling up, out, and deep framework. It's generally applied for social movements, but is incredibly vitally important to support gender inclusivity in aquatic food systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And now over to Kifilwe, who is joining us virtually. Do let us hear from you.
Thank you, Chair, and all protocol observed. Greetings, everyone from the beautiful Africa. And thank you for inviting AG NEPAD for this important side event. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there physically, but I'm here virtually. So the African leaders actually have responded. To give an example, that in 2018, our African leaders actually met in Nairobi to really develop what is called a blueprint of Africa's blue economy strategy. And this is done to actually guide sustainable development and utilization of oceanic fisheries and aquaculture resources in Africa. And in 2019, the AG and NEPAD developed the Blue Foods Economy Program, which is more focused on wealth creation, inclusive prosperity, and creating decent jobs for all, including women and the youth. And this is part of what is called the Africa We Want, which is Agenda 2063. And as we speak, the Malabo Declaration is also strengthening the inclusion of women in blue economy. This strategy also is also to support the AU member states to recommit, redesign the policies and programs around blue economy. And this also, it affects also the issue of illegal fishing that is happening in Africa, that the strategy is actually tackling those issues as well. Now, in 2003, we have developed a program that is called Home Grown School Feeding, that is actually linking the smallholder farmers, including fisheries, creating a stable market for them to supply to the schools. These are scalable programs that we are implementing, replicating in Africa. And in 2019, we're actually on the ground to really do assessment of what is the impact of women really supplying fish to schools. And in Nigeria, for example, in Ogun State, southwest of Nigeria, we're able to interview some women on the ground that are part and parcel of the school feeding program, where the government of Nigeria have contracted the women to supply the schools. And therefore, this also really improved the nutritious meals that we are talking about right now with support of WFP and other partners. Last year during the UN Food Systems Summit, we as AD and NAPAD were really supporting the member states to convene the dialogues. And one of the outcomes that were mentioned there is the improvement of promoting also local consumption, that is including aquatic food in our traditional meals. How do we make sure that we have, fish, for example, as part of family meals? And this is also ongoing. For example, we have developed the African Common Position, which is also addressing issues on food systems, and blue economy is one of the key priority of doing that in Africa, and ultimately improving the outcomes of nutrition and food security. Not forgetting that this year is a very special year where our heads of states have themed this year as the year of nutrition and food security, focusing on building resilience on nutrition and food security. And to mention that AD and NAPAD actually support the School Meals Coalition as part of really improving the consumption of aquatic foods in the African diet. And as we speak, on the 13th of October, we are also organizing a side event, which will also promote the Healthy Diets Coalition for all the children and all. And this actually was supposed to be targeted to the African member states to ensure that they commit to improving blue economy investments within the respective countries. I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kipilvi. And can we go a bit further with what you described? And if you can tell us which elements are needed in the short term to be put in place in order to scale the solution you described. And I'm asking about short-term solutions because we are all very anxious as to how we meet the 2030 agenda with just 8 years to go.
Thank you so
over
much.
to you.
Thank you so much for that again. Solutions that we have again is around reprogramming our policies as well, formulating policies that speaks to blue economy investment. I'll give an example of what we've been doing, which is Mediterranean fisheries and aquaculture in the Comprehensive Africa Aquaculture Development Program, which is known as CADA. Many member states in Africa actually are so familiar with CADA process. So it's easy for us to mainstream, fisheries and aquaculture within the national agriculture investment plans, as well as the regional agriculture investment plans. And I'll give example of SADC in the Southern Africa hemisphere, whereby they actually are prioritizing fisheries as one of their key programs. And in some heads of states in SADC region, they have actually developed a protocol that is actually to push the Southern African member states to really invest in aquatic resources and aquatic ecosystem for the member states, and also to promote enhancement of food security, human health, and safeguard the livelihood of fishing communities, amongst others. So these are the things that we do in terms of ensuring that the aquatic foods are actually being taken care of and given a priority on the ground. The issue of capacity building, as my colleagues have mentioned in Zambia and Cote d'Ivoire, is very, very important that we create a platform for women actually to share information as well, to learn from each other, to provide training for fish handling is very, very important. Food safety issues and quality control, as you know, fish and fisheries are the high-risk commodities. So our women in Africa have to understand how to really mitigate these risks. And on top of that, NAPAD with NORAD also, they have actually come up with a program, which is called the Gender Climate Change and Agriculture Support Program. And this program is targeting rural women in terms of mitigating issues of climate change. And now we have the 4 Cs. And NAPAD is therefore to ensure that our women actually are not left behind, and we provide a solution to tackle such issues as well. Now, NAPAD also developed a program called the Fish Government. So the Fish Government is actually redesigned to ensure that we support member states, such as Guinea-Bissau as an example, to really come up with some strategies that can actually strengthen the Guinea legal fishing community, for example. And we conducted some studies in Tanzania as well through the fish governance, where we actually deal with the government officers to really ensure that they translate what has been actually agreed upon at continental and regional level, and actually come up with domesticated policies and programs in place. So the fish government is actually ongoing, and we are partnering with so many partners such as FAO as well to support us on the ground and provide solutions, practical solutions to the African member states going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kifilmi. And I wish you and your colleagues all the best for all what you are doing this year, the Year of Nutrition in Africa 2022.
Thank you.
And now to you, Maria. What must be done to fully recognize women, also young women, as important actors in the aquatic food systems?
Thank you, Shakuntala. I think I'll take us to another part of the world since we've covered India and Africa. I'll single in on a case in Chile where head of a seaweed union, Sarah Garrido, was part of an industry already generations. She's already the 5th generation. In the 90s, this industry was largely governed by men. It could have done a better job of selling its harvests, but the ideas and participation of women were fundamentally not included. And this caused some tensions in the community. And of course, women were not allowed to participate in the meetings of the Caleta, which is a local artisanal fishing union in southern Patagonia of Chile. And with a little education and a hell of a lot of perseverance, the women brought some change in the Caleta. And today the Seaweed Union is made up of a majority of 6,500 fishers with a governance structure that's producing positive outcomes for both women, the fishery, and of course their future food security requirements. So over many years, Sarah Garrido has also been working on a new legal instrument that incorporates gender approach and an adaptation to climate change, which is a fundamental threat to fisheries around the world today. And in 2021, the Bill for Gender Equality was approved, forever changing public policy and institutionalizing the role of fisherwomen in the decision-making process. This industry has been recognized by the Chilean government, and now gender mainstreaming is becoming institutionalized at the national level, which is really fundamentally important. So this is a way to recognize women as taking a scaling up, out and deep approach, the local level, and implementing at a global level. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. That was an excellent example. And Molly, now over to you as a young woman researcher. And firstly, personally, I wish to thank you for always bringing me up to speed on the latest research. And I'd like to ask you, which elements should be prioritized to engage and empower more young women researchers like yourself to work in aquatic food systems?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh, I should take this off. I think, speaking from my own experience, I think it helps to have a mentor who can assist in helping to direct different ideas and where there's need for youth to be more involved in aquatic food systems, but then also in aquatic food systems research. And especially that direction is especially helpful from, I think you mentioned that we benefit from collaborating. We benefit from each other, from learning and keeping up on the latest research, but then also understanding where that research is going and where do aquatic food systems need to go. So if we're looking at climate change and climate adaptation within aquatic food systems, I think this is a upcoming area, and this is something that's becoming more and more important as we're reaching towards the Sustainable Development Goals in 8 years, as Shakuntala noted. And we need to make sure that we're including youth in research and in innovation and and providing opportunities for youth to get involved through internship programs, through reaching out to universities, working directly with universities, offering work experience through internships or through other experience in the field, so that youth actually get really hands-on experience. And that includes, I think, especially when we're talking about aquatic food systems, I think there's a need to engage youth from many of the countries that we are talking about here today, or many of the countries that we have a few panelists from, but we need to especially reach out to youth in those countries and make sure to build capacity and engage them in aquatic food system transformation.
Thank you, Molly. And let us now open up the floor for questions and answers. And to start the ball rolling, let's take a question from the audience by raising your hand and direct it to Molly. And then I'll take 2 virtual questions for Maria and for Kifilvi. May I see a show of hand, please, for a question for Molly? Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Tom Grasso with the Environmental Defense Fund. I guess maybe I would ask, what role can men in the fish system play as allies to help women and empower young women, particularly to move in to decision-making roles? Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. As women, I think there's increasing efforts to recognize women in fisheries through data collection efforts like the Illuminating Hidden Harvest project, which has focused on looking at where women work in fish value chains, but then we're often missing the other half of the work that's happening inside the house, and how this can add burden to women if we're expecting to work with women outside of the house on fish value chain activities, but then also we're not looking at what they're doing at home, and how can we ensure that men are also part of the change, and that men can also take on some of that work in the home. So I think often we expect women's empowerment to fall only on the shoulders of women, and I think the CFS guidelines on gender actually go into this a little bit through the promotion of gender transformative approaches and looking at the underlying issues relating to societal or gender norms around work done in the household, but then also outside of the household, and how we can work better with both men and women.
Thank you, Molly. And I have 2 questions that came in virtually. I'll take one first for Maria, and then go over to Kifilvi afterwards. And Maria, to you, WWF, where you work, is a big international NGO. So what roles can WWF play now in empowering and engaging women in small-scale fisheries presently?
Thank you. Very good question for me. Nice weight on my shoulders to take us forward. WWF, as I'd mentioned, has 700 local and international partners around the world with whom we're working in 120 sites in 29 countries. So I think we have an important role to convene the appropriate partners on projects that would deliver inclusive outcomes for women in aquatic food systems. I also think WWF is very good at working in corridors such as these to strengthen policy outcomes in these instances. It's a very active in engaging in COFI, hopefully more now CFS, but certainly in the appropriate policy arenas that would influence policies at the national and the regional and hopefully the global level for coastal communities the world over. And I also think that WWF, together with these 700 partners, covers a huge footprint around the world that would demonstrate a lot of, pilots that are delivering great solutions. But I do think that the scaling framework that I'd mentioned earlier will not be delivered alone. If we're going to do this, we're going to do this together. We need to find appropriate partners in all of these spaces, human rights-based institutions, in the nutrition sector, in the ocean sectors. All of these partners need to integrate their action plans and work together to deliver the scaling ambition that's required for aquatic food systems globally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. And now over to Kefilwi. As we know, Kefilwi works for this very important and all-encompassing African agency, African Union Development Agency, AUDA NEPAD. So Kefilwi, the question that came into you virtually is, how can a large and influential institution, AUDA NEPAD, what can you do to enhance the focus on women in small-scale fisheries and improve their lives and livelihoods? Over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the excellent question. As I had mentioned, we as AUDA NEPAD, we have very good policies that are in place to really push and elevate women in terms of fisheries. I gave example of the home gospel feeding program that we do, and that's where we actually engage with many women, especially at the community areas, by creating a market for them through schools, through supplying schools. So I gave example of that in Nigeria, for example, the women in there, along the value chain, the women in there actually get the fish from the fishermen in Nigeria, clean the fish, cut the fish, process the fish, and supply it to the schools. Now, 3 weeks ago, we had a SADC, which is Southern African Women Committee, where we had 16 member states that convened together to discuss inclusion of fish in the regional policies and as well as national policies. And one of the things that we mentioned is that through fish processing, like coming up with the fish powder, we can actually use it to improve the school meals. And in many countries in that region, women are the ones that actually are doing fish processing. So we create and elevate some of those scalable solutions that we can replicate across Africa in many African member states. In Seychelles also, where we have a lot of women in fisheries environment, we do also capture some of these key lessons, create a knowledge that can be replicated across member states. And like I mentioned, we have strong policies now that speaks to blue economy investments. And now that is the year of nutrition, we also promote fisheries as one of the key investments that we need in Africa to tackle issues of malnutrition and hunger in Africa. And of course, to improve the livelihoods of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kefilwi. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached to the end of our side event. We have heard from 8 remarkable women in different capacities and across different regions, highlighting the pivotal role of women, especially young women, in aquatic food systems. As the world continues to grapple with the disruptive effects of climate change, conflicts, and COVID-19, transformation of food systems is necessary to ensure that everyone, especially the poor and vulnerable, are food and nutrition insecure. Holistic transformation of food systems must acknowledge and harness the power of women to make change locally and globally. On behalf of the Global Action Network, we would like to thank the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, WorldFish CGIAR, the Government of Norway, Government of Spain, Government of Indonesia, Bread for the World, the University of Ghana, the Coalition for Blue Aquatic Foods, Food Systems Summit Community, China Blue, the University of the West Indies, the German Agency for International Cooperation, GIZ, Gulf of Caribbean Fisheries Institute, InFish Network, and Mostra Maris, the Fin do Mundo. International Collective in support of fish workers' ventures for supporting this event. As you can hear, we have many partners who are engaged, and we do wish to thank them, and we do wish to continue working and strengthening this agenda on aquatic foods with all of us. Please do subscribe to the Global Action Network newsletter to receive the event recording and other post-event materials, and visit the Global Action Network and the WorldFish websites for more information about the work we do. Thank you all. And please note that we have refreshments outside for those of you who are in the room today. Thank you all.